Welcome to Math Plus, where math makes sense. In this video, we're going to talk about real-world application using area and perimeter. Why in the world do we need to know the area or the perimeter of anything? Why am I ever going to use it? In this video, I will show you how. First, let me remind you, a perimeter is the path around. The area is the amount inside. Three major areas you will use perimeter and area are construction, remodeling, and decor. Look at this ringed-in house, for example. A lot of work went into it, and area and perimeter were needed. Here are the dimensions of the building. The grain bin itself has a diameter of 28 feet. The addition in the back to cover the kitchen and the dining room, it is a 24-foot by 30-foot addition. It was very important to know the diameter of the grain bin house. In this case, the grain bin had to be set on a pad. So not only did the builders have to know the diameter and the area of the inside, then they had to add a foot to all the way around so that the pad could hold the grain bin. Once the grain bin was attached to the foundation, another crew came in, and then they added a flooring on the inside. They put more concrete on the inside just so all the gaps around the grain bin would be sealed. Again, they had to know the area of the grain bin. They had to know how much concrete to bring. They had to do the math to figure out how much concrete per square foot to cover the area inside the grain bin. Later, once all the walls are inside the grain bin and they're ready to put an epoxy down on the floor, again, you have to know the area of the floor inside the grain bin and then figure out how many cans of epoxy that you need to be able to do the job. Lots of math going on here. Let's not forget the flooring in the addition. The addition measured 24 feet by 30 feet. Again, you need to know the area of the floor so that you can go buy wood planks or tile, whatever it is that you chose. And when you buy it, you need to know what is the area that I'm covering, how many cuts there will be, because sometimes you're only going to use a half of the board, so you have to factor all of that in, and then figure out how many square feet will each box of flooring cover. Well, enough of that. Let's talk about painting some walls. Again, you need to know how to figure out the area of that wall. To get the paint, to buy your supplies, you're going to have to know how much paint do I need. You're also going to have to figure out how many coats are you going to put on. If it's a new build, if it's construction, you will have to put a primer on there. If it's an old house and you're painting a light paint on top of dark paint, made a primer. You have to figure out what that area is that you're covering and then how much paint that you need to cover it. You also need to know how to figure out the area and the perimeter when redecorating your house. Think about it. When you want to maybe put a new area rug down in front of your couch, you need to know the perimeter of that rug. A lot of times they're sold as 8x10s or 6x7s or 4x6s. There are all kinds of sizes. How much area on the floor do you want to cover? So they kind of work hand in hand. I think you're starting to realize that by now. Area and perimeter are like married. They always come together. Curtains. You need to know the area that you're covering on your window, and then you go buy the curtains to fit the window. Same things with window sheaths. You have to know, what am I covering? How long do the shades have to be? How wide? And then you can buy them. Another place that you need to know area and perimeter would be for your backyard projects. Have you thought about putting a swimming pool in? First of all, you have to decide how much area do I have in my yard to be able to put that swimming pool in. And then once I get it in, I need to make sure I left enough space around the pool to put a fence up. I need to know the perimeter. How far is it from the pool to the fence? So you have to get all that figured out. And we're going to throw one more measurement in there to fill that pool up. You'll need to know the volume. How much water will that pool hold? And burgers, and even whether it's a backyard garden or it's a huge garden on a farm, you need to know if I'm putting 6 rows of corn in, how many feet will each row be? How far apart is each row going to be from the other? What is the area that I'm covering to put my garden in? City planners, when they put parks in for the community, they need to know the area that they're going to use for that playground and then strategically place each piece of equipment, making sure there's enough ground area for the children to play and for the equipment to be in there. Here are a couple of reminders about perimeter and area. Can you think outside the box of what I've already represented of when you use perimeter or area in your everyday life? Share with us down in the comments.